Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've always been passionate about building community spaces where people can come together without breaking the bank. After spending years working in expensive gyms and seeing how many people couldn't afford the membership fees, I decided to start running my own fitness activities in our local community center. I keep the cost at just £5 per person, barely enough to cover the basics, but that's not the point. It's about creating something accessible for everyone. Things were going great for the first few months. We had a steady group of regulars and everyone seemed to appreciate the affordable pricing. That was until this one participant started causing problems. They'd been coming to my sessions for about 2 months, always showing up with takeaway pizza from the expensive place down the street, which I found a bit odd considering it costs more than my entire session. But hey, who am I to judge how people spend their money? One day after the session, they approached me with a classic excuse of forgetting their wallet at home. They asked if they could pay the following week instead. Being the trusting person I am, I agreed without hesitation. They didn't show up the next week, which was unusual since they'd never missed a session before. I sent them a friendly message checking in about their absence and gently reminding them about the payment. They replied with another excuse, saying they wouldn't get paid until the following week and promising to pay then. I mean, £5? Really? But I tried to be understanding. When their supposed payday came around, I sent another gentle reminder. Complete silence. That's when I decided to talk to the community center owner about it. The owner stepped in and contacted them about the payment issue. They responded to the owner with yet another promise to pay as soon as possible. 2 more weeks went by, nothing. I sent another message following up about the payment, reminding them it had been several weeks. That's when they sent back this elaborate message that honestly left me speechless. They went on about how they were struggling financially, claiming they could barely afford to eat and didn't know where their next meal was coming from. They begged for understanding about their inability to pay. Now, I might have been more sympathetic if I hadn't seen them paying the £3 entry fee to the community center every week without issue, or bringing in those expensive takeaway pizzas. But at this point, I decided it wasn't worth chasing £5. I just stopped sending messages. 3 weeks later, during our committee meeting at the community center, someone brought up the topic of payment issues. I hadn't planned to mention it, but when asked directly, I explained the situation and showed the messages. The owner and committee members were furious. They'd been claiming poverty to avoid paying for various activities while spending freely on takeaways and other non-essentials. The committee made a unanimous decision. The participant was banned from all community center activities until they paid their outstanding debts. Not just to me, but to 2 other group leaders. They'd apparently done the same thing too. When they received the ban notice, they suddenly found £20 to pay everyone back within 24 hours. Funny how that works, isn't it? They tried to come back to the sessions after paying, but the ban wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the principle. I still run my sessions for £5, and now we have a proper payment policy in place. Everyone pays before the session starts. No exceptions. My story starts about 5 years ago when I met my husband. He was perfect in every way, kind, understanding, and completely accepting of the fact that I had a condition that made it difficult for me to conceive naturally. We knew from the start that having children would be a challenge, but he always assured me it didn't matter to him. The problems began when I met his family, particularly his mother, my stepmom-to-be. She seemed nice at first, but everything changed when she learned about my condition. During one of our visits, I overheard her pull my husband aside and ask him if he was really sure about marrying someone who couldn't give him proper children. My husband immediately shut her down, telling her that it wasn't her business. We got married anyway, despite her protests. The ceremony was beautiful, even though she spent the entire time looking like she'd bitten into a lemon. For the next 2 years, we managed to keep our distance, only seeing her during major holidays and family gatherings. During this time, my husband and I started saving up for a specialized fertility treatment that could help us conceive. It wasn't cheap, but we were determined. Then came the family dinner that changed everything. My husband's younger brother was there, and I accidentally overheard him talking on the phone in the backyard. My stepmom was asking him if he'd heard about our plans for the surgery and speculating about how much we must have saved. When my brother-in-law expressed doubt about her plan, she called him stupid and insisted that we must be keeping the money in our house, claiming that rich people don't trust banks nowadays. She told him to break in while we were sleeping and promised they'd split the money. When my brother-in-law worried about getting caught, she assured him we'd never know it was him if he wore a mask. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She called me defective and said she wouldn't let her son's bloodline be tainted by me, declaring that I didn't deserve to have children anyway. I was shocked but managed to keep my composure through dinner. When we got home, I told my husband everything. We decided not to confront them immediately, but to be prepared. We already kept our savings in the bank, but we installed security cameras just in case. 3 nights later, around 2 a.m., our security system alerted us to movement in the backyard. My husband grabbed his baseball bat, he'd been a college player, and went to investigate. I watched through our security camera feed as a masked figure tried to jimmy open our back door. The moment the intruder stepped inside, my husband ordered him not to move. The intruder tried to run, but my husband, running on adrenaline and anger, swung the bat. It caught the intruder right in the shoulder with a sickening crack. The mask fell off, revealing my brother-in-law's face. My brother-in-law begged my husband to stop revealing his identity. My husband, still gripping the bat, demanded to know what he was doing in our house. I had already called the police and they arrived within minutes. My brother-in-law, clutching his injured shoulder, broke down immediately. Through his tears, he confessed that his mother had put him up to it, explaining that she'd told him about our fertility treatment savings and how she didn't want us to have kids. He admitted she'd promised to split the money with him. The police arrested him on the spot, and when they went to question my stepmom, they found text messages on her phone proving she had orchestrated the whole thing. But that wasn't all. They also found evidence that she had been planning this for months, including detailed notes about our schedules and multiple discussions with my brother-in-law about how to break in. The evidence was overwhelming. My brother-in-law took a plea deal and got 2 years for attempted burglary, while my stepmom got 5 years for conspiracy and being the mastermind. During her trial, more of her true colors came out. She had apparently been telling other family members that she was protecting the family bloodline from my defective genes. The judge was quite harsh in sentencing, noting that targeting a family member's medical savings was especially despicable. She also got slapped with a restraining order that would take effect after her release. The rest of the family was horrified when the truth came out. My father-in-law immediately filed for divorce while she was in custody. He came to us in tears, apologizing profusely. He told me he had no idea she was capable of this and expressed deep remorse for failing to protect me, saying that I was his daughter too. The silver lining? The money we saved up was completely safe in our bank account, and 6 months later we were able to go through with the fertility treatment. My stepmom's going to be serving the rest of her sentence, knowing that her plan not only failed but backfired completely. She tried to send a letter from prison when she found out about my pregnancy, but we refused to accept it. The family's closer than ever now. Minus 2 members we're better off without. And soon, we'll be welcoming a new addition who will never have to meet their grandmother. Growing up in a single-parent household meant I had to help support my family from a young age. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and as soon as I turned 16, I started working at the local supermarket to chip in with the bills. After graduating high school, I couldn't afford college right away, so I focused on building my career in retail management. Over the past 3 years, I worked my way up from cashier to assistant manager at a large department store. The pay was decent, and I was good at my job, but something was still missing. That childhood dream of serving never went away. After months of research and careful consideration, I finally decided to join the Coast Guard Reserves. It seemed perfect. I could serve my country while maintaining a civilian career. The recruiter was incredibly helpful, explaining everything about the training requirements. 8 weeks of basic training followed by 12 weeks of technical training. I was excited about the opportunity to learn new skills and be part of something bigger than myself. Last Monday, I walked into my manager's office feeling nervous but optimistic. I had prepared a detailed plan for my temporary absence and even had suggestions for covering my responsibilities while I was away. I started by telling him I needed to discuss something important about my future plans. He asked what it was about, so I explained that I had decided to join the Coast Guard Reserves and would need time off for training. 8 weeks for basic training and 12 weeks for technical training. I mentioned that I'd already prepared a transition plan for my responsibilities. I tried to hand him the document I prepared, but he didn't even look at it. His face turned red, and he leaned back in his chair. He told me bluntly that it wasn't going to fly with him, saying they needed employees who were available to work. I reminded him that there were laws protecting military service members, pointing out that I was given several months' notice before shipping out. He responded angrily that he didn't care about any laws, declaring that it was his store and he made the rules. He gave me an ultimatum to choose between the job or what he called my military fantasy. I stood my ground, telling him I wasn't asking for permission, but informing him of my legal right to serve. That's when he fired me on the spot, ordering me to clear out my locker and leave immediately. He added spitefully that I shouldn't expect a reference from him. I was shocked, but kept my composure. As I was packing my things, one of my co-workers, who happened to be our district manager's daughter, overheard what happened and immediately texted her father. Within an hour, my phone rang. The district manager told me not to leave yet, saying he was on his way. 30 minutes later, the district manager stormed into the store. He called both me and my manager into the office. He confronted my manager, asking if he realized he had just violated the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. When my manager confusedly asked what that was, the district manager explained that it was a federal law protecting service members' civilian jobs when they're called to serve. He emphasized that what my manager did wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. My manager tried to defend himself, protesting that they couldn't hold my position for 5 months and questioning who would do my job. The district manager shut him down, explaining that they would handle it the same way they handle maternity leave or medical leave, by adapting. He added pointedly that if my manager couldn't handle that, maybe he was the one who shouldn't be working there. The district manager then turned to me and apologized for the situation. He assured me that my job was protected and I would receive full benefits during training. He even mentioned they had a company program that supplements military pay during service-related absences. He asked if I wanted to keep my position. I thought about it for a moment. While the law was on my side, I wasn't sure I wanted to work under a manager who had shown such disregard for both my rights and my service. I respectfully declined, explaining that the incident had shown me I should explore other opportunities. The district manager was understanding and offered me a position at their flagship store downtown, with a 15% pay increase, mentioning that the manager there was a veteran herself. I gratefully accepted the offer. My now former manager sat there, mouth agape, as I accepted. The district manager wasn't done though. He told my former manager that he would be attending mandatory training on employment law and company policies, warning him that one more similar incident would cost him his job. I started at the flagship store the following week. My new manager was incredibly supportive, helping me prepare for basic training and ensuring all my paperwork was in order. I later heard that my former manager was passed over for several promotions due to his poor judgment in personnel matters. Now I'm just waiting for my ship-out date, knowing my job is secure, and I'm finally pursuing my dream of serving in the Coast Guard Reserves. I guess I should start from the beginning to give you all some context about how I ended up in this mess. I met her during my sophomore year of college. We were both taking business classes, though she had just transferred from a private university due to some incident that I'd learn about later. Coming from a middle-class family, I worked part-time jobs throughout college while studying, determined to make something of myself. She came from wealth, her father being the chief executive officer of a major corporation, but that didn't matter to me then. We clicked instantly. After graduation, I started my own tech consulting business. Those first few years were brutal. Endless nights, missed weekends, and barely making ends meet. She stuck by me through it all, or so I thought. Looking back now, maybe she was just waiting for her investment to pay off. The business finally took off last year. Suddenly, I was making more money than I ever dreamed possible. I bought us a beautiful condo downtown and I wanted to share my success with her. She had been floating between temporary jobs, never really committing to anything long-term, but I didn't mind supporting her. I thought she just needed time to figure things out. That's when things started changing, as the fancy clothes, the expensive spa days, the lavish shopping sprees. It was like she was trying to spend money faster than I could make it. Still, I wanted to be supportive. I even started making payments on her car loan just to help out. Last Thursday, I decided it was time for a serious conversation about our future. We sat down in our living room after dinner. I started by telling her we needed to talk about where our relationship was heading. She asked me what I meant, confusion in her voice. I explained that while I loved supporting her, I thought she needed a plan. I offered to help her find a career or even pay for her to go back to school if that's what she wanted. She seemed shocked that I would even bring this up. When I added that I'd give her until December to figure out what she wanted to do, that's when she completely lost it. She started screaming about how she was the reason for my success and that I wouldn't be where I am without her. When I asked what she meant by that, she exploded even further, saying she had wasted 5 years of her life with me and that she could have been married with kids by now instead of sticking around while I built my precious business. I was stunned. In 7 years, I had never seen this side of her. That's when she let something slip that made everything click. She mentioned that her father had been right about me and that she should have listened when he said I'd never amount to anything. That's when I learned the truth about the incident that made her transfer colleges. Her best friend called me the next day and finally told me everything. Apparently, she hadn't accidentally put her car in drive instead of reverse when she hit her friend in college. She had deliberately done it because her friend had started dating someone she was interested in. Her parents paid $250,000 to settle it quietly and forced her to transfer schools. I had been living with a complete stranger. I told her about my upcoming business trip and instructed her to be gone by the time I returned on Tuesday, telling her to leave the keys with our mutual friend. She tried to protest, saying I couldn't do this to her. I simply told her to watch me. I canceled her credit card that same night. The next day, her sister called me repeatedly while they were still in my condo. Her sister told me that she had been crying all day and wanted to work things out. I responded coldly, telling her sister to let her know that her luxury lifestyle had just run out and she had 4 days to pack. When I returned from my trip, not only was she gone, but she had tried to trash the place. Fortunately, I had already asked our mutual friend to check in daily, and they caught her in the act. They recorded everything, including her attempt to steal some valuable items from my home office. I'm selling the condo now. Too many bad memories. The funny thing is, her father's company just became one of my biggest clients last week. They don't know I'm the same person who just dumped their daughter. I made sure to get assigned to their account personally. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.